Welcome to the Church Podcast, talking all things ministry so you can do church better. I'm your host, Christopher Wesley, and today's guest is Elissa Tiprigan from Catholic Family Crate. I met Elissa, kind of via email over a couple of years ago because I was just looking for different resources out there for families through my parish ministry job, and I came across Catholic Family Crate, and they do such great things with activities and art and things to help you and your family, especially if you have a young family, to grow in their Catholic faith. And so in our conversation, we talk a little bit about, the type of things that we need to do at home to help our families grow in their faith. But we also talk about what it's like to be a small business owner, especially in a niche market like the Catholic faith. So buckle your seatbelts, get ready for a great conversation and to meet a wonderful person. And without further delay, here's Elissa.
Okay.
Elissa, welcome to the Church Podcast. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me.
And I believe you have Ruthie with you. Is that correct?
Yes, this is Ruthie. She just turned 2. She just woke up.
Oh, awesome. Ruthie, congratulations. You are the first child on our podcast. That's awesome. She's still waking up, right? Yeah, so it's
Yeah.
early. But Elissa, thank you so much for joining the Church Podcast show. And for people who are not familiar with you in Catholic Family Crate, can you just give us a little bit of your history and how Catholic Family Crate came about?
Yeah, so Catholic Family Crate in a nutshell um, started as a subscription box to make it easy for Catholic families to teach about the faith and learn about the faith. And it has quickly transformed into a totally different, not the same mission, but a little different. So we're basically on a mission to get kids excited about their Catholic faith and make it really easy for parents. And we are revolutionizing Catholic educational materials. So we're just trying to make them a little more current, a little more exciting, a little higher quality paper, but with the same great, true information that's ancient in our faith.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And just for people who are watching and listening, I'm a subscriber. I get the materials. I love them. I love the different colors, the images, the graphics are just clean and incredible. Um, Take us back though. Was this just something you've always aspired to do? Was there kind of like a breaking point? Like, I see you shaking your head. So yeah, like what, how did you get to that point where you're like, you know what, I'm going to do this?
Yeah, I'm an accidental entrepreneur. So I have my oldest is 9,
Hmm.
and right before he was born, we moved to the Diocese of Denver. And I had always been Catholic, made it to Sunday Mass, and that kind of thing was, nominally involved. And then we ended up at this very strong parish in the Diocese of Denver, and I had never seen like Catholics like existed here. Like I was super blown away, and I was in my early 20 or mid 20s, and you know, these people just like were on fire for their faith, and they were talking to their kids about the saints, and they were celebrating seasons besides. I knew about Advent, I knew about Lent, but I didn't really understand like Christmas is a whole season and Easter's a season. And um anyways, so I all of a sudden for the first time was like encountered by like these beautiful families that were teaching their kids about the saints, were living the church year, and at the same time I was having my first child. And so I was just so inspired by these families who had like this faith that carried them past Sunday Mass. um, but then when I had my first kid, like as he got a little bit older and I could start doing things with him, I was like, how are these people doing this? Like, I don't know anything about the church year. I don't know anything about the saints. Um, and I am drowning in like I was always a working mom, like part time, but I like any chance I had that my son was napping or in bed, I was needing to work. And so it was just like dinner and dishes and diapers. And then I was like, okay, and now I'm supposed to do all this extra Catholic stuff too. And so it just started as my own desire to teach my child. And I just would, when I would have free time, I would be like on Pinterest and all the blogs and trying to like compile all this information. And it was so overwhelming. Like nobody had like a concise, easy to use thing. So it first started where it was just like a Google Drive folder system. And I shared it with my friends because I was like, if I'm doing all this research, I might as well like help other people. And so I just had a folder for every month and people could print off recipes or a coloring page or information about a saint and share it with their kids. Um, but it was still like, I think I did like 3 months of folders like that. And life would happen. And so my sister was actually having a very similar experience. She had gotten married and moved to Steubenville, Ohio, which is where Franciscan University is. And so same thing, she was dumped into this like community of like really vibrant Catholics and like I don't even know what they're talking about. It felt like a different language than anything we had ever even heard growing up. And so my first idea was like to have it be something that we did in our communities where like okay, Christopher, you would take the month of January and you would prepare like materials for like 10 different or 12 different families, and I would take the month of February and we would sort of like divide and conquer. And so I was talking to her and she was like, well, what about like a subscription box? Like, I think you can just order a Catholic subscription box. And I had never even heard of subscription boxes.
Right.
And she was like, "Oh, they have them for everything. I'm sure they have a Catholic one. You can just buy it and it'll come to you." So she told me they have like wine of the month and shaving supplies of the month and all these things. And I live in like a dark hole. Like I'm not on social media personally. I just like don't do anything. So I was like totally unfamiliar with this whole world. So I got online looking for a Catholic subscription box to order for me and my family, and there was nothing. I waited a couple months. The need still was there. Looked again, like surely someone started something.
Mm.
Nothing. And so it was basically a year of me like continuing to look and just being frustrated, like, why has no one started this? And then at some point, I just felt like it was like God like nudged me and was like, what about you? Like, what about you? And I was like, I don't know anything. Like, I can't do this. And I had so many doubts and, like, zero business experience. Um, and then eventually it was like, okay, like, but I know like theologians. I
Mm.
know like, moms or Montessori teachers who could help me. And so it was putting together like the right people to help me come up with this. So I'm just the master coordinator. But the thing I think is funny too is I I think it's like a testament to like if you God gets you to say yes in these like little ways. So what it originally was I would just buy products from different companies every
Mm.
month and like create basically just like a box that came to you so you didn't have to source all these products yourself. So that was my initial yes to God. And then I would send out surveys every month of like what people liked and what they wanted to see more of and stuff like that. And then um, every time we do a box, there would be stuff I couldn't find.
Mm.
And we grew pretty quickly too. So I would be reaching out to these sweet little Etsy shops, and I'm like, I need 500 of this item, and they'd be like, I can't do 500, like I do 10 a month or something. So quickly it came to like I couldn't find the products that I wanted to put in these boxes. So I would hire an artist and we would do like a one-off product. And those were always people's favorite things
Yeah.
in the box. So then it pretty quickly turned into okay, we're creating all of our own content. So everything in the box is like exclusive to Catholic Family Crate. And for several years, that's how it was. And then people just kept asking more and more, like, I can't afford to subscribe, or I'm not able to subscribe. Like, I just, or gift shops would reach out, like, hey, I want to sell this item, or want to give this item to my, to my parish community or whatever. And so about 2 years ago, we started actually releasing our products from our subscription box to the public. So
Wow.
now we have the subscription box and then also all the items. And so it's really like morphed into like, I want Catholic kids to have products that are as high quality as like what they would see in Barnes and Noble. Like I don't want them to feel like their Catholic things are like subpar
Mm.
or different. Like I want them to be like colorful and engaging. I don't want them to be like on bad paper or poor quality. Like I think we're used to like such bad quality for kids stuff. Like I just like wanted them to be stuff that like they felt like, oh, this is like as cool as the secular stuff out there, you know?
Yeah. Well, and that's clear. That's apparent. And I think that's one of the things that definitely attracted me to, look more into Catholic Family Crate and even subscribe and use it with my family. And, there's a couple of things that kind of came to my mind as you're sharing your story. I mean, the first thing is, you started out this need, right? And it started to grow. Was there ever a point where you're just like, oh my gosh, this is too much. Should I pull the plug on this like endeavor, right? Or should I take a step back? Because, as we're both business owners and we know that scalability is one of the most exciting yet terrifying things at the same time. So, how did you manage through that? How did you like kind of work through that season?
I feel like it's like a maybe every other day to once a week
Okay.
thing. The entrepreneur roller coaster is real and
Hmm.
alive.
Yeah.
So I feel like it's very frequent that I'm like, I'm done. Like this
Hmm.
is all like I'm just gonna burn it all down.
Yeah. Yeah.
So my husband's very encouraging and keeping me going, and then like the feedback from customers, right? I'm like, I can't
Hmm.
shut it down. Like everyone loves this. But they're definitely like, I mean, it's hard. It's like every day, like getting up and I have four small kids that I homeschool. And so, I mean, there's a lot, like, I know that I am stunting the growth of this. Like, I know the
Hmm.
demand is far more than I can give. Um, and, maybe one day when my kids are grown and gone, I'll have more effort to put into it. But for now, it's just about kind of keeping it manageable and and stuff. But yeah, I mean, I love the product creation. Like that's my real passion is like
Hmm.
dreaming. And I'm not the artist. We have a hired artist. If I was the artist, it would be horrible. But um so, but I'm like the dreamer behind the products and like the one that's like, okay, I'm looking for this. My son's preparing for confirmation, and why don't they have this? And
Hmm.
let's like make something for this. So that's my real love. But and then like the marketing stuff and the business side, I'm like, oh, do I really have to deal with sales taxes? Like, I didn't get into this business to deal with sales taxes. I mean, I'm sure you know the people who listen to your podcast. It's like they want to like be able to serve people and then they have to do all this paperwork.
Right. Right. Oh,
So
I
it's
mean,
like the same
that's
thing.
that's church to the T, right? You're like, hey, let's go on this pilgrimage, fill out this paperwork. Let's have, a family night, fill out this paperwork, right? You want to volunteer, fill out this paperwork. And I mean, that's a whole nother conversation for another time. But another thing I want to kind of go back to, and this is kind of like a twofold question or conversation. I think the phrase is, you said, I'm a master coordinator, right? I coordinate this team.
Yes.
And what caught my attention about that is, yeah, you have this small business, yet you still have a team. And one of the things that has always impressed me about in the communications we have is you have boundaries, right? Like you're homeschooling your kids, right?
Yeah.
You're running this business, and then everything else in life, added on to that. So tell, like, were those things that you naturally established, you and your husband sat down and talked about? Like, it was just kind of like, it seems like, yeah, I wouldn't argue necessarily that you're slow. Yeah, the business will go as fast as you allow it to go, but it
Right.
seems like it's in a very controlled and methodical way. Can you speak a little bit more to that, like working with a team to help you do all that you can do, but at the same time managing the balance so that you're not burning out while this business is growing?
Yeah, so it's definitely been a challenge, and I've read a lot of books and listened to a lot of podcasts and stuff to try to like figure out, a good balance. And I'll say like some seasons I have a better balance than others, so it has not always looked perfect. But I have always like prioritized like, okay, I'm gonna be home and I'm gonna be with my kids. And there have been seasons where we've had, babysitting and that kind of thing. But I've always tried to be like, okay, like, if a kid needs me, I'm right here, right? Like I can
Hmm.
stop what I'm doing. Um, and there have been seasons that we've done it without any childcare. Most of the time, we've done it without any childcare. Um, and yeah, I think being organized has helped, and B, setting boundaries. So the amount of things that I have to do on a daily basis is like never going to get done. Ever. Like I could
Yeah.
work 24 hours a day and it would never get done. So I try to like for example, meeting with you, like I stack all of my meetings on Wednesday mornings, and I've arranged it so that my husband's able to be home on Wednesday mornings. So he's with the kids on Wednesday mornings. I get like as many meetings as possible on Wednesday mornings. And really, unless it's like a very weird circumstance, I can't meet outside of
Mm-hmm.
Wednesday mornings. Um, and I just, yeah, I've tried to be as organized as possible. We have a project management system that's helped, and I think, a lot of this was just forced by like when you have a monthly subscription box, it is like feet to the fire
Hmm.
every single month. And so I was just telling someone, I'm like, it's really a miracle. Like God has just watched over this because we have done 12 boxes a year for 5 years. And then there was a period of time that we had a seasonal option as well. And that was 5 different boxes a year. So those went like in line with the liturgical seasons, except for Lent and Triduum were together because since Triduum's a couple days, we just put them together. But so there was maybe 2 or 3 years that we were doing 17 boxes a year. And we only had one late box ever. We've never missed a box. And the box was like 3 days late into the month. And it didn't even, like, it wasn't even a big deal because the saints that we were learning about that month, their feast days weren't even for a while into the month. But that was literally like, I think that was the April, it was like right when COVID started.
Hmm.
So everything was just like totally haywire with all of our manufacturers. So I don't know. The whole thing is like a miracle, but it basically takes like 340 steps every month. So we have it,
347 steps a month. Like,
yeah, to get everything
wow.
together is a lot of steps. And so we have it like built out into our project management system.
Hmm.
I mean, and we're so like I mean, we're already done with the July box. So we have to work super super far in advance.
Yeah.
Um so I have most, everything planned out for the year, but I feel like that has helped to like break it down into the steps and so that everyone knows what they're supposed to be doing.
Hmm.
and at when they're supposed to be doing it, so that I don't have to like be thinking in my brain. That's what I try to do as much as possible. My brain is like a crazy place. So I try to like everything I can get it out of my brain
Mm.
so that I can like sleep, be present with my kids. So I keep like a Word document up so that like any idea or oh, I need to remember to do this, like goes on that Word document. So then
Mm.
it's like not stuck in my brain.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so I don't know if that's helpful. I mean, I try to be really strict about my phone usage because that was like something that I was like, I mean, if I'm complaining I don't have enough time and I'm looking at my screen time and I'm spending 6 hours a day on my phone, like clearly I could be using that 6 hours a day for something better.
Hey everyone, sorry to interrupt the show, but I wanted to give a shout out to this week's sponsor, which, if you haven't guessed it, it's Catholic Family Crate. Catholic Family Crate is founded by, well, I don't need to explain that. You're watching the episode. But anyway, again, they have such great content, subscription boxes, they have stickers, just different accessories, things to help you and your young family grow in their faith. I've used Catholic Family Crate with my boys, and even though they're starting to get a little old for it, it's still great to see the different magnets and different things that they've given us to remind us what season of the liturgical calendar we're in. And so all you got to do is go to CatholicFamilyCrate.com and either sign up for one of their subscription boxes or just check out all the resources that they have to offer. Well, anyway, enough of me, enough of this advertisement. Let's go back to the show.
Well, and you mentioned that earlier, right? Like you're not on social media, and I think I'm seeing a lot more and talking to a lot more people I know with myself, where I'm just like, as much as I do enjoy aspects of it, like if I'm spending too much time on it, right? It's like, uh, what else could I be doing that's more productive to helping me as a father, as a parent, as a father or husband, or a business owner or a ministry leader, and yeah, I appreciate like even the ability to organize and break down all those steps, even though it's a lot of steps, that that enables us to have that path that even if we stray, we can get back on that path and continue to produce it. I think that's
Right.
incredible. Now, I think we could spend hours talking more about productivity, but like the other thing I wanted to sort of mention that I think is genius of what you do, and you were mentioning this before, is that the crates follow the liturgical calendar, right? And we were kind of talking about this before we hit record, but like how so much of the content that parishes try to send home, right? It's not stuff that is conducive to home, right? It's
Yep.
conducive to a parish setting, and that's not necessarily quality. It's just more context. Um, tell us a little bit more about like how you decided to follow more of the liturgical calendar and a little bit of that challenge um, of finding materials that are more conducive for the home versus the parish.
Yeah. So initially, I decided to follow the liturgical calendar just because that was like where I felt the most need for help, right?
Hmm.
Like I was like, okay, I don't know what to do for Lent, and there's all these different resources being thrown at me, and I just want it to show up at my door
Right, right, right.
and have the resources. So, and the same for Advent. So initially it was like my own just kind of like, oh, I have a great example. So
Okay.
there's like there's all these Catholic mom blogs out there, and these women are amazing. I mean, they have like gifts, and I don't have those gifts. So there's this one, like I think you see it on all these different blogs, and it's like hands-on stations of the cross for your kids, and you get everything organized in an old uh egg carton because it's got 12 slots, so you have two that double up. So it's close enough to the 14 stations of the cross. And anyways, you have like, a tissue for when Veronica wiped Jesus's, or the women were crying, and then you have a cloth that you draw Jesus's face on for when Veronica wiped Jesus's face. And then you have like these, like, those really like Jesus looking nails that you can get from Home Depot that they touch, and you have popsicle sticks, glued together in the shape of a cross, and like and then a leather like whip, and like all these different things, right? Well, so I saw this before I started Catholic Family Crate, and I'm like, this is perfect. My son's 3 years old. He's obsessed with, 3-year-old boys love the Stations of the Cross, and he would love to do this. Well, I spent like $70 on this little like easy kit. I had to go to 4 different stores to get all the stuff. And like you can't buy one Jesus looking nail. I now have like 60 Jesus looking nails. And you've got like a whole thing of popsicle sticks, and you've got, all this fabric, and like you have I can't even remember all the things, but like you can't just buy like a little tiny leather strip. You have to go and buy like a bunch of leather, and then anyway, so I had this like box in the closet, and I had spent $60 on basically like it's like trash. It's not like, high quality stuff. And I was just like, this is what we're telling moms to do. Like, that's not my life to have all this time and money to like perfectly curate this like hands-on engaging thing for my child. Like, and the moms who have the time and the money to do that, like, more power to you, but that was like not my thing. And then same with like crafts or baking. Like, I don't like to bake. I don't. I feed my family. I'm in and out of the kitchen as fast as possible. I make like I like cook for Easter, my husband's birthday, and that's, Christmas. Other
Yeah.
than that, I like leave the baking to grandma. Like, she's going to teach my kids how to bake cookies, and they're going to get Costco birthday cakes, and we're all going to live. So I felt like there was like not really anything for moms that were like me. Like, there was a lot for moms who were like the super perfect crafty mom, and there was a lot for moms that were like amazing bakers and really wanted to plan these like, you know, feasts for their families. But I was like, what about the moms that like would rather, take my kids out on a hike and, not spend all day doing crafts. So, um, that was part of it. And then I'm trying to think of the other part of your question. So the other part of your question was like, how did the same thing was that a lot of the resources. So I feel like I have this secret power of like the secret thing of I had access to everyone's feedback. So I heard like, what does my audience want? And I spent a lot of time in the beginning just listening to like, what do you want more of? I mean, like I said, I would send out surveys after every single box. What did you like? What did you not like? What do you want more of? And so I could really see, and I could see the use of the items in my own home. And then through like scouring the web and trying to find products from companies to add to my boxes, I was able to see like a lot of this stuff is built for like a classroom. Like, so for example, like we're pretty famous for like our Stations of the Cross material for Lent. And when I was looking, all the options were like for a teacher to put up in her classroom. So 8 by 10 poster size for every single Station of the Cross. They were like laminate. I mean, it looked like something you get at a teacher supply store. And that's what Catholic moms were putting in their house because they didn't have any other option. And I was like, no, who has room in their house for 14 8 by 10 laminated posters? And who wants to look at that all Lent?
Yeah.
I don't want to look at that.
Yeah.
So it was like, okay, families have smaller spaces. They don't have like a bulletin board to staple up things on. They um want it to be appealing to the adults, like, and that was a big thing for me too, was like, I personally, my kids love Brother Francis. Do I want to hang Brother Francis art up in my home to look at every day? No, I don't.
Right.
Like, So it was like hitting that balance of like stuff that my kids liked, but stuff that I felt like, oh, I like having this up. Like this is a beautiful reminder for me too, and this is helping me too. And I didn't want my house to look like a preschool.
Mhm.
Um, and so like for example, like our first rendition of the Stations of the Cross, they're like 4x6 cards. I hang them up on a banner, and it fits just perfectly over like a fireplace or over, in a small area. And I think they're beautiful. My kids look at them throughout Lent. So it was like that kind of stuff, was just thinking like, okay, like how does a family do things differently than a classroom does? And how do our families need different resources? And we have a lot of people who use them in the classroom.
Mhm.
But I felt like what people were really wanting was someone to come along and create stuff that was designed for the family use first and foremost. So that's what we always think about when creating things, is like first and foremost it's for the family. And this is kind of another tangent, but the other thing that we've tried to do, with the same with the art, we try to strike a balance with our writing that's like appealing to a wide variety of ages and can meet like Catholics wherever they are, because I didn't want I like how I always think about picture books, right?
Mhm.
And like, my 6-year-old loves Fancy Nancy.
Mhm.
I hate reading Fancy Nancy. But like if she brings me a Jan Brett book or a Tommy DePaula book, those are children's books, but I love reading them because they're beautiful
Mm.
and the storyline is good, and like they're just more elevated than like Fancy Nancy or Pete the Cat or
Mhm.
whatever.
Yeah.
And so we try to strike the same thing with our writing. Like the writing, and we actually I had a priest write me the other day, and he was like, someone brought me your Bible basics cards, and I was so impressed because they were simple enough for a child but engaging enough for an adult. And I was like, you hit it right on the head of like what we've tried to do. Like we try to make the content like not go over kids' heads, but also not be like dumbed down so that the parents are like not getting anything out of it or annoyed reading it.
Well,
I don't know if that helps.
and no, and that's kind of the genius of what you're all doing and seeing is it's you talked about like first the mom materials, right? And I know from talking to a bunch of friends that I have who homeschool their kids, like one of the biggest concerns they have is clutter, right? And so you just talked about clutter and expense and helping parents who face that, like you're kind of relieving them of that challenge there. And then also going back to like how you started getting into this and, talking about your sister moving to Steubenville and you moving to Denver and everything and being inspired by these Catholic families who were getting into their faith. But like, like one of the big issues that I see out there for parents is sometimes you see these wholly dedicated families and there's either a sense of shame or intimidation that comes alongside of that. And your materials don't convey that. They are simple, they're engaging, they're beautiful, and they're inviting. And so I don't know how aware of that you are, that you're really kind of like finding that nice balance between, kind of like you said with what the priest was sharing, that these are simple and engaging, um, but they're not intimidating or overwhelming. And
Right.
it's helping families in that way.
Yeah, and we wanted to have like that depth so that the really like highly educated Catholic families weren't like, oh, we're not learning anything.
Hmm.
But we also wanted it to be so that like, hey, you just converted, or like you're not even making it to Sunday Mass, you don't know anything, you're still like getting educated. And so it's definitely been the Holy Spirit, because it's like a hard thing to balance, because I found the same thing. I mean, the biggest thing that I was intimidated by was not only the time, but the lack of knowledge. Like
Hmm.
I just didn't have the knowledge. And then, and what I hear too is like, I met with a youth minister here in our diocese, and he was at seminary for like 6 years. So he has a huge amount of theological knowledge. But all of a sudden, he has a 5-year-old and a 3-year-old, and he's like, I don't know how to break it down for them. So I use your boxes to like break down what I know in a way that makes sense to them because I can't, like, I don't know about talking to kids about theology. So
Right.
it's like striking that balance of like, and that's why I say it's totally the Holy Spirit, because it is a really hard balance to hit, um, of like, we don't know where people are at who get our materials.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I know that they're in a wide array of different people, and I know there's plenty of grandmas who are sending our materials to grandkids who have never graced the, a
Yeah.
church before. And so it was like I didn't want it to feel like, oh, Catholicism is some secret club that you're not going to like understand unless you
Mm.
are immersed in it all the time. So yeah, it's interesting because the knowledge gap, I think, is really intimidating for a lot of parents of like, we want to teach our kids the faith, but and that's why it was very important to me from the very beginning. I mean, I started this with no money. Like, we're just normal people. I
Yeah.
don't have like a trust fund or investors or
Yeah.
anything. But I worked another job and like funneled all that money into doing it. And one of my biggest things was like, we have to have everything reviewed by a theologian.
Mm-hmm.
And at first it was my parish priest who kindly donated his time. And then we graduated to for probably 4 years we've worked with a professor at the Augustine Institute here in Denver,
Okay.
and he's a dad with 4 young kids, so he's kind of like our dad perspective on the whole thing too. And then he just makes sure that we're not, heretical, because as a not theologically educated mother, one of my other concerns was like, how do I trust these resources? Like, if I'm
Mm.
wanting to open it and share it with my kids, I could pick out like really big issues, but I wouldn't be able to like pick out like a little issue with something. And so I wanted to know that our resources were like, true,
Mm-hmm.
and that was our emphasis, so that I could trust it and feel good about putting it out to the world, but also so that other parents could feel like, okay, this is not just like a mom in her basement writing after her kids go to bed. Like, this is like high quality stuff, and I can pull it out and trust it and know that it's not going to have some sort of wacky
Yeah.
thing in it.
Hey, sorry. I know another ad. All right. Yep, we'll get back to the show. Trust me. But I wanted to take some time to talk about the church podcast premium subscription. That's right. We have a premium subscription where when you sign up for CP Plus, you not only get episodes earlier, you not only get away from these ads and these annoying ads and everything, but we're going to send you a free subscription to MYM Premium where you get videos and downloadable resources for you and your team so you can get better at ministry. You also will get producer credits, and there's nothing better than producer credits, right? Especially for a niche podcast like this one. So why wait for that? Also, when you sign up for CP Plus, we're going to give you 10% off your first custom t-shirt order at Foremarks Printing, one of our sponsors here at the Church Podcast. But the best part, when you sign up for CP Plus, is that 50% of your proceeds, 50% of what you give towards CP Plus each month, goes towards the Ministry Training Source, which is an organization that's focused on research for professional ministry. So even if you're not a professional minister, you're helping us figure out how we can support and build up the profession of lay ecclesial ministry. So what do you have to do? Just go to thechurchpodcast.org and scroll down, and you'll see a box for the Church Podcast Plus premium subscription. And that's all you got to do. So instead of buying a third of a pizza, sign up for a monthly subscription at thechurchpodcast.org. Anyway, enough of me. Back to the show.
And I'm really enjoying this conversation, and but we're going to start wrapping up our time. And we're going to have to catch up at another time and maybe have you back on the show if your time permits it, because I don't want to invade your time because I love what you're doing and I want you to succeed. But so one thing we do with all of our guests on the show is we have these final 5 questions, and it's just a chance to, see different things that you're into and, tips and hacks that we can share with our listeners. So are you ready for the final 5?
Yes.
All right.
Ready
So,
or not?
all right. First question, in addition to prayer, because prayer is essential, what is one tangible tool or resource that has helped you be your most productive self?
Okay, so I would say Michael Hyatt's book, Free to Focus.
That's a great book. Yeah. Yeah.
Have you read that one?
I'm a huge Michael Hyatt fan. So yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So I didn't know he's a deacon in the. Do you
I'm
know what?
forgetting what denomination. Yeah, 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 yeah. But yeah,
It's like he's like right removed from
yeah,
Catholicism. Like,
he's a big Christian business owner. He actually used to work for a Christian publisher,
okay.
and stuff. So his podcast, his video content, his books, like it's all good. It's all good. Yeah. So
Yeah, so Free to Focus was great. I really, I mean, because I have such a limited amount of time to work, that top 3, he recommends like picking a top 3 things every day of like if you did nothing else, what would move the needle? And that
mhm.
is huge for me because like, every day I have 40 things to do, and the most important things are often the things that I don't want to do because they're the
Yeah,
hardest.
yeah, yeah,
But
definitely.
it's like, okay, I just need to do those 3 things. And like yesterday was one of those days where like the only time I had to work was like from 8 p.m. to 11. And it was like, okay, I can't answer every email. I can't get inbox 0. I just need to like, do these 3 things, and that will move my business forward more than anything else. So,
That's awesome. That's
yeah.
awesome. So, kind of in the similar light, second question: what are you currently reading, watching, or listening, or doing that you feel like everyone else should experience? Like everyone else should be a part of this.
Okay, so I don't know why it took me so long. Probably because well, I guess part of it was when I first started my subscription box, there weren't really a lot of resources for subscription box owners.
Mhm.
And now that we're more like e-commerce and subscription box, I um, finally I joined a community. It's
Mhm.
just like $50 a month of other e-commerce owners, and it has training and like a Facebook page. And so I would say like just not even an online community, but just getting together with other people who like have the same job and life challenges as you is huge. Like most people in the group I'm in are women, a
Mhm.
lot of them are mothers, and so it's people who aren't, working 80 hours a week while their wives are home taking care of the kids, like, and just like having that community of other people who are dealing with the same things and not like just I always think it's interesting, like when you see churches, right? It seems like every church does their own thing. And like I've talked to a lot of youth ministers or people, and they're making their own resources for their 200 kids going through First Communion. And I'm like, how much time is that taking you? Like, shouldn't we all be like sharing our resources? Like,
Mhm.
you're not a graphic designer, you're not a curriculum maker. Like, why is everyone like operating in their own little silo, making their own like custom programs and this and that? So I think just working together with other people who have a similar and learning from other people who have a similar job for me has been such a gift, and I regret not doing this years ago because I've just been like all by
Yeah.
myself in a silo for so long.
Oh, that's awesome, and you've brought up some good points. Again, conversation for another time. All right, changing gears a little bit. Being a business owner, what's some of the worst ministry, leadership, or maybe even business advice that you've gotten from someone regarding like what you're doing with Catholic Family Create?
So I guess it kind of ties into what I was just saying too, but when I first started, people like other Catholic business owners that I had met thought I was off my rails for hiring people to help with the content. They were like, "You're never like you have to do it yourself.
Mm,
You need to learn Canva and PowerPoint and create all your own graphics." you like, you're never going to be able to afford like paying an illustrator and paying a writer and paying a theologian. Like, you need to do all of this yourself. And I was like, no wonder everybody's stuff looks so bad.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
because who out there is an illustrator and a Catholic writer and a teacher and a theologian, and I was thinking that the other day, like I went to visit the warehouse and I was like, remember how people told me this wouldn't work if I hired like good people. And it did take a lot of sacrifice in the beginning, but I was like, I would rather go bankrupt than like put out bad PowerPoint made Catholic materials by myself.
Amen
So
to
I think that was the
that.
worst advice, was like,
Yeah.
oh, like just basically do bad quality stuff, because there's no way you can like afford to do good quality stuff.
Well, I'm glad you overcame those naysayers for sure.
Yeah.
All right. Only two more questions, but if you had one message for, maybe it's a new ministry leader, maybe it's a new entrepreneur who's starting out, wanting to work better with families, especially, like, what would that be?
So I think like we touched on, like if you when you're sending stuff home,
Hmm.
give them things that will work with them. Like, don't send them with, a worksheet with 25 classroom style questions. Like, give them stuff that will work in the home setting. Give them beautiful materials. Like, if it's engaging and beautiful, they're much more likely to use it.
Mm,
Um, the other thing we hear of a lot is like that, parents are so busy, and like anything you can give them that the kids can take ownership of is really helpful. So like if it's something that requires a lot of parent involvement, it's probably less likely to get done in the home. But if it's something that the kids can really take ownership of, that tends to be a lot more effective. Um, and I guess that being said, we do have a ton of free resources on our website, and those are welcome to be distributed in like classroom or church settings as well, to try to help people on a low budget to do those for free. But that's kind of my biggest thing, is like make sure it's stuff that's like really high quality
mm.
and that is designed for the family use.
Definitely, definitely. All right, last question. What is your biggest hope for the church at this season of life that you're in?
Oh, I think like the next generation. Like, I feel a lot of hope for the next generation, because I feel like the parents of this generation are much more like engaged and
Mm,
thoughtful with the faith. Like, I think for a couple generations, it was sort of like, all right, send them off to
right.
Catholic school and like, religious education, and hopefully it'll work out well. Um, but I think we've seen that didn't work out great.
Yeah.
So I'm really hopeful for this next generation, because I feel like parents now are much more like engaged, and they're really wanting to build their domestic churches. And so I'm really hopeful that the next generation will be full of like really brave, faith-filled Catholics, and hopefully we get lots of new saints.
Amen to that. And Elissa, thank you so much for supporting that and being a part of that for families. If people want to learn more about Catholic Family Create and your organization and your mission, where should they go?
Yep, so it's just catholicfamilycrate.com, and then on all the social media platforms, we're just at Catholic Family Crate.
Awesome. Well, thanks again for being a part of the show, and look forward to future conversations with you, because I've got tons more questions I got to ask you at another time.
Yeah.
All right.
Thanks for having me, Christopher.
All right. Bye.
Okay.
This has been a production of Marathon Youth Ministry, the church podcast talking all things ministry, produced by Stephen Herrera and Be Well Creative. Music provided by Loco Joseph. No animals were hurt in the production of this podcast. Please be sure to tip your waiters. See you next time.